Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. What is Rick Glacier's reaction to the news that Jaron Ennis has made the plunge? He's made the leap of faith, over to Matchroom, saying Stephan Espinoza is no longer advising Boots Ennis after today's announcement of Ennis signing a promotional deal with Eddie Hearn. And the Hearn deal was done in complete secrecy from Espinoza because of Espinoza's very close relationship with Al Heyman, who was also heavily pursuing Ennis. The Weasel has had a very bad 6 months. Showtime Boxing goes down. Espinoza loses his job. Ennis leaves Espinoza. Ennis signs with Heyman's enemy, Hearn, and Espinoza is still dangling and angling for a job anywhere. Espinoza's not called the Weasel for nothing, and Espinoza is fast becoming irrelevant in boxing. It's happened to others. It could soon happen to him. I hardly think that Stephan Espinoza, who was said to be advising Jaron Boots Ennis, would have advised him to do this, or would have wanted him to do this, to go to Matchroom and sign with Eddie Hearn. Rick is saying they did it behind his back. How would that have happened, you ask? Well, remember, Andy Cruz, amateur standout and Olympic gold medalist Andy Cruz, is promoted by Matchroom, but trained by Bozy Ennis.
Jaron Ennis' father.
Coincidence? I think not.
That might have had something to do with it.
In tandem with what could have been empty promises and smoke and mirrors from the people at the PBC, promising to deliver Jaron Ennis this or promising to deliver him that, but failing to do so, and looking at the state of affairs over there versus the state of affairs at Matchroom and Eddie Hearn, who was quite vocal that he wanted to sign Jaron Ennis, that he believes he's got star power, star potential, and he wants to bring him over.
They made the right decision for them. I think they did.
The interesting part, the part that most people are talking about, is that as soon as Jaron Ennis achieved free agency, he had a choice.
He did.
He could have went to the PBC. Most people expected him to, myself included, or he could have went to Matchroom. And he decided to go to Matchroom.
It's not what people expected him to do.
What does that say about the PBC and their state of affairs? And what does it say that all of this would have happened behind Stephan Espinoza's back, who was fulfilling an advisory role to Jaron Boots Ennis at the time? What does it say?
That it's not all sunshine and rainbows over there.
Otherwise, he would have went with them. That if he felt there was something they could do for him, then that's where he'd be. As it stands, he's with Matchroom. He's with Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn, who has now declared that he will push to make the Terrence Crawford versus Jaron Ennis fight. I believe Boots will be undisputed at 147 pounds. If we can make it happen, and at 154, I think he can beat Terrence Crawford. That's the fight I want to push to make.
I won't begrudge Eddie Hearn doing his job and promoting his fighter.
Because that is his fighter now, so he's gonna say stuff like that. It's expected.
But does it happen?
Well, Jaron Ennis was asked if he believes that Terrence Crawford wants to fight him, and he said, I'm not sure. He said a few times he's not looking my way. I'm not a big enough name, but there's nobody else left for him to fight. Either you fight me, or you fight nobody.
Not exactly.
Having Matchroom behind him certainly makes the fight at least a little bit more viable than it was before, because before, he didn't have major money behind him to make such a fight happen, whereas now he does.
And that helps.
But it doesn't make it a lock. It doesn't make it a guarantee, because what Jaron Ennis is now talking about is an undisputed run at 147. Terrence is leaving 147 and is rumored to be heading up to 154 for an Israel Madrimov fight that the Saudis may be paying for. I haven't forgotten.
Did you?
Before this news broke, that news broke that might be Terrence's next fight for the WBA title at 154, where Jaron Ennis is staying at 147. So when you think about it, yeah, it helps. It helps that now you have Matchroom behind you, and that might help to make a Terrence Crawford fight or a Conor Benn fight.
It helps.
Jaron Ennis was asked if he'd welcome a fight with Conor Benn after signing with Eddie Hearn, and he said, I'll fight anybody. I don't care who it is. I'm excited about collecting all of the belts, the WBA, the WBC, and the WBO, to become undisputed. That's what I'm excited about.
Pay attention to that.
What he's talking about is an undisputed run at 147, not following Terrence Crawford up to 154. And as far as that undisputed run, how long is that going to take him? Currently, The WBC's interim champion, Mario Barrios, is over there on the PBC side of things. A Montestanionis, who's most in line to fight for the WBA, he's over there too, at least for now.
They're fighting on Canelo's undercard.
If they maintain their status and where they are in the ranks, you're gonna have to try to get those guys in the ring. Just as well, you're gonna have to try to get Santillán, the WBO's interim champion, who's over there at top rank. You're gonna have to try to get him in the ring too.
That's the lay of the land at 147.
Now, just because two of those guys are on the PBC side of things doesn't mean those fights won't happen, because a good number of PBC fighters have already started jumping ship to look for opportunities elsewhere, lucrative ones like Wilder and Frankie Sanchez and Subriel Matias. You know the names.
Just because they're over there right now doesn't mean they won't leave later on.
They might. And when you think of Santillán, while he is on the top rank side of things, Top Rank doesn't have a very big investment in the welterweight division and welterweight action. So if push comes to shove and Matchroom makes him a sizable offer,
maybe he crosses the street.
Maybe. You have to remember that Top Rank actually sent this guy over to Golden Boy to fight Alexis Rocha. They sent him over to DAZN that time, so maybe when the time comes, they'll send him over there again, if the offer is worth his while. This is what you have to think about down the line.
And this is what you have to think about when they bring up Terence Crawford.
You're not following him up to 154. You're ramping up an undisputed run that could take up most, if not all, of this year. By the time you're done with that, Terence Crawford may have retired.
He's 36, going on 37 years old.
I don't want to rain on anybody's parade, but that's reality. He's not going to be around forever.
How many more fights do you think he has left in him?
It's what you have to think about when it comes to the not-so-distant future. As far as what's in the immediate future, Eddie Hearn has revealed that Jaron Boots Ennis' next fight will be the ordered mandatory title defense of his IBF title versus Cody Crowley. Hearn said that they want this to be a homecoming fight for Boots in Philadelphia in either June or July.
There's been a lot of questions about that. What's going to be Boots' very first fight under the Matchroom banner? Seems they want to make the Cody Crowley fight.
Here's the problem.
What?
Cody Crowley's name is already attached to another fight with another fighter via another alphabet organization, the WBC. Cody's name is attached to a Souleymane Sissoko fight that Souleymane Sissoko's promoter won the purse bid for, and it could go down in June. Same time they want to get Boots out there. All-Star Boxing of France have beat the premier boxing champions in a purse bid to stage the World Boxing Council's welterweight final eliminator between Souleymane Sissoko and Canada's Cody Crowley. The Paris-based firm who promotes Sissoko outbid the PBC with a sum total of $477,000. As per WBC rules, 10% of the purse bid will go to the winner. The remaining 90% will be split 50-50 down the middle. We are very happy that we will stage the fight in Paris. All-Stars Jerome Abituel said exclusively to Boxing Scene, Sissoko is one of the big hopes for France. After winning a bronze medal at the Rio Games, he's a good man, very smart and very technical. He's the future of boxing in France, so it was important for us to win the bid and secure the fight. Now you have to wonder, what is Cody Crowley gonna do? Is he gonna go through with this Sissoko fight?
Or can Matchroom reel him in?
Once you remove the winner's bonus, the $47,000, which accounts for 10% of the overall bid, what you're looking at is $430,000 that both guys have to split down the middle.
Cody Crowley and Souleymane Sissoko.
Once you split it down the middle, both guys stand to make roughly $215,000. For Eddie Hearn to get Cody Crowley to come back over to their side of things, he's gonna have to offer Cody more than that.
Round it up to $300,000 or $350,000.
Cody loses to both of those fights, you understand. I've seen Cody Crowley and I've seen Souleymane Sissoko.
Souleymane's all right.
Souleymane Sissoko is a mover, he's a jabber, and when he wants to, he packs a decent-sized punch. He can beat Cody Crowley, and so can Jaron Boots Ennis. Thus, the decision will be made based on who's paying more. Does it pay more to fight Ennis, or does it pay more to fight Sissoko? Because the both of those guys beat Cody Crowley.
It's a fluid situation.
Pay attention that Cody Crowley is a PBC fighter. Pay attention that this is a WBC eliminator for a shot at the WBC interim title.
Mario Barrios is set to be defending that very soon.
Without making any bold proclamations, you can see how this is a fluid situation. Cody could lose in France just as easily as he could lose here in America to Jaron Boots Ennis. So you have to wonder, What's he gonna do? Where's he gonna go? Who's he gonna fight?
Because that will then tell us who Jaron Ennis is going to fight as his very first fight under the Matchroom banner.
Now, as it pertains to Terence Crawford, his longtime trainer Brian Bomac McIntyre said Terence Crawford would beat Canelo Alvarez like he did Errol Spence.
I don't think so.
I don't think it would be as lopsided as that fight was. Moreover, Canelo Alvarez can give Terence Crawford that much more to think about than Errol Spence did. But trainer Brian Bomac McIntyre says his leading charge, Terence Crawford, is still keen on a fight with Canelo Alvarez. McIntyre, talking to Fight Hub, said of Crawford, that's probably what he wants. Canelo. Bud beats his ass. He outboxes him. Weight don't matter. Bud's been fighting bigger people all of his life. We know how to roll with the punches. We know how to take your power. We can take your power away from you. How do you take the power away from a puncher? Timing.
How's that work?
Timing Canelo Alvarez's entry with the jab out of either the orthodox or southpaw stances to try and control him and keep distance from him.
Catch him coming in.
What makes the fight between Terence and Canelo unique is that Terence wouldn't be fighting a particularly big super middleweight, a physically imposing guy. The tail of the tape, they are more or less evenly matched, even though Canelo is heavier than Terence, packs a heavier punch.
Though he's not taller or longer than Terence Crawford.
That's what makes this situation unique and in some ways viable for Terence Crawford and those who would back him to win such a fight, that he's not fighting a guy who towers over him. Brian continued, it would be Errol Spence versus Crawford too. Canelo has said that he has no interest in the contest, which would match the undisputed champion at 147 versus the undisputed champion at 168, largely because of the size difference, and that it would place him in a no-win situation. I respect that, because if you get beat by the smaller man, said McIntyre, the real boxing fans know Bud can beat Canelo. He might be bigger, but he don't got the height. He don't got the reach. He's got a good boxing IQ, but he doesn't have that crazy IQ that Terence has.
Stylistically, it's a fight that favors Terence. Physically, it's a fight that favors Canelo.
That's why it's intriguing, because you can make an argument for either man to win the fight. Terence Crawford is no ordinary welterweight and no ordinary fighter, but the same can be said for Canelo Alvarez, where an argument can be made that Terence might box around Canelo Alvarez because he's not a really big guy. A separate argument can be made that Canelo would walk through him, walk through his punches, that Terence don't got enough power to keep him off.
I envision a situation where Terence is boxing from the outside, staying behind his jab and firing straight punches.
Canelo is barreling forward, catching and shooting or trying to out of the high guard.
The
question is, can Terence Crawford keep Canelo on the outside and at the end of his jab for 36 minutes? Can he do that, or does he get knocked out because Canelo is simply too durable, too strong?
That's where I disagree with Brian McIntyre. You can't liken a fight with Canelo to a fight with Errol.
Errol is nowhere near as experienced or as capable as Canelo, not as durable, not as strong, doesn't take as good a punch. It doesn't get said enough that Canelo Alvarez really does have one of the best chins in all of boxing, some of the best punch resistance, and if you can't get his respect, how do you stop him from coming forward? How do you keep him out?
Those of you that have been with this channel for a long while will have heard me question Errol's punch resistance on many occasions, as well as his punching power, and I don't think for a second Errol brought as much firepower to the table as Canelo would. No fucking way.
So to liken one fight to the other grossly underestimates what Canelo Alvarez can do and how careful Terence would have to be if he were lucky enough to land that fight. Though ultimately, we may never know. We may never know what would happen if Terence got that opportunity. The talk now...
The story is he's moving up, but he's moving up for Madrimov.
Now that's a good fight. Even though Israel Madrimov does not have anywhere near Canelo Alvarez's profile or marquee value, it's still a good fight. Very intriguing.
Against a much greener fighter, but still a champion at junior middle.
And a very capable boxer, best described as a mid-range to inside boxer puncher and a bouncy one, fleet of foot one.
He can move.
Stay with you while he's moving and set up sneaky counters.
Great shot selection.
You see there how he lands the shot, then pivots afterwards to stay out of the line of fire.
Knows how to protect himself.
While opening up the opponent for other punches, trying for other shots, and staying with the opponent the whole time.
Making him miss.
Israel Madrimov is a tricky fighter, very tricky in the pocket, because the whole time it feels like he's there there to be hit because he's staying with you, staying in front of you, but he's moving the whole time that he does it. He may bear a striking resemblance to Gennady Golovkin, but he's a lot more fleet of foot than Gennady Golovkin was.
Lighter on his feet.
Bouncier. The footage you're looking at here is 5 years old. He's even more bouncy now, more tricky, more dangerous. And this is who Terence Crawford is said to be fighting next.
On the Saudis' dime.
It was just the other day I questioned whether or not Tim Kazoo had what it took to beat a guy like this who, in spite of not having that many professional fights, his amateur experience.
It rounds him out.
He's a very good fighter, and if not for the Saudis paying Terence Crawford, potentially paying him to take this guy on, this guy would be a high risk, low reward.
Can Terence beat him?
I think he can, but it's a very dangerous fight. Israel is a very tricky target. You'll waste a lot of punches aiming for his head. You have to aim at his chest.
It's a bigger target.
You see how he keeps his chin tucked the whole time he's moving around, in and out on his toes, baiting his opponent to throw so he can counter what they throw. He's fast, he's strong.
You'll waste a lot of punches trying for the head.
So when I think about a fight between him and Terence, well, I do think Terence Crawford's punching power will carry up to 154, and beating a tricky mid-range to inside fighter like this, he's gonna have to aim at Israel's chest.
Decoy jabs.
Aim at the chest in order to bring over the straight from either the orthodox or southpaw stances.
Because he can move his head.
He can move his head just fine, but he can't move his chest. That's a much bigger target that gives you a point of reference for where and when to bring the backhand over.
I saw some guys poo-pooing all over the fight.
Poo-pooing all over Israel Madrimov, guys who have either never seen him in action or they have.
But they don't know shit about boxing.
If I told you that this guy has better footwork than Errol Spence, because Errol's got heavy feet,
Where this guy stays on his toes the whole time, pivoting.
and changing levels while he does it, staying tucked behind his guard, that he knows how to protect himself, they would think it's a blasphemy. It's a blasphemy to suggest that Israel Madrimov already does some things better than Errol does, or that he might actually have more power than Errol does.
But those guys don't know shit about boxing. They don't know what the fuck they're looking at.
That's why they drunk the Kool-Aid on Errol, thinking he was gonna beat Terence. I'm here to tell you, this is a good fight and a dangerous fight.